Space, the final frontier. To explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
This is America in Space, a weekly news and information program on current events. From our Washington Bureau is your host of America in Space, Rick Potlock.
Welcome, and thanks for joining me today on this edition of America in Space. Astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley were supposed to launch from Florida aboard the Falcon 9 rocket at 4:33 on Wednesday. A SpaceX executive put it this way: preparations were complete, but to get off the ground, the team would need weather gods to cooperate. Well, the weather gods, it seemed, had other ideas. The Demo 2 was down to about T-minus 17 minutes, 16:54 to be precise, when NASA and SpaceX officials called the scrub due to weather. NASA has some very strict weather guidelines, and the launch was scrubbed due to the electric fields in the atmosphere and the threat of thunderstorms. Translation: lightning in the area. Anybody who's been to a sports event affected by lightning can understand that. Falcon 9 and the Dragon had an instantaneous launch window, and basically that means that SpaceX is unable to hold the count and wait until the weather passed. The reason? The fuel used to propel the rocket cannot sit in the booster on the pad because it warms up and that affects the performance. This means that we have another day or so of waiting for this historic launch of U.S. astronauts from a U.S. launch pad. The last time that happened, July the 8th, 2011, when the Space Shuttle Atlantis lifted off from that same launch pad 39A. The new launch window is for Saturday afternoon at 3:22 p.m. And if the weather doesn't cooperate then, NASA says there's another opportunity, Sunday at 3 p.m. The reason the windows are so short is what they call instantaneous is not just for fuel, but for the length of time it takes the Dragon to catch up to the International Space Station and to get the ISS crew on board synced with the ground. The weather in Florida this time of year is iffy at best, as the natives will tell you. There's an old saying, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. Unfortunately, that does not apply to space launches. Saturday's launch has only a 60% chance of going off as scheduled. As an example, the day prior to the scheduled launch from the Kennedy Space Center, there was a tropical depression that was sitting off the Florida coast. The next day, that system became Tropical Storm Bertha that made landfall in the Carolinas, but that left thunderstorms and tornado warnings, which eventually scrubbed that launch. So now we all wait until Saturday at 3:22 and hope the weather gods grant NASA an open window. And if that's not enough weather for you, think about this. The weather also has to be perfect at dozens of what are called abort locations, which stretch thousands of miles up the eastern seaboard of the United States and across the Atlantic to Ireland. These areas have to be clear in the event during that 12-minute ascent to orbit that might be required in the event of an in-flight emergency. NASA has invested $6.2 billion in the Commercial Crew Program since its inception back in 2010, making it the lowest cost human spaceflight development effort in nearly 60 years. NASA and SpaceX are hoping that once the Demo 2 proves that astronauts can be successfully launched from the Kennedy Space Center, it'll lead to long-term cost-saving space taxi service, or as I like to call it, Space Uber, with each seat on the Russian Soyuz spacecraft costing the U.S. nearly $85 million. You can see why NASA wants this program to succeed. This flight would put Elon Musk and SpaceX in the rarefied air of only 3 spacefaring countries, Russia, China, and the United States. Join us each Friday for current news and information on the America in Space series. Thanks for listening, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and share our program with your friends and family. Join us tomorrow at 3 p.m. for About Space Today's coverage of hopefully a successful launch of the Dragon spacecraft. See you tomorrow.